This is the sound of fear itself. The year 1982. A quiet neighborhood in suburban Chicago. A normal American family prepares for dinner, but their meal will be a deadly one. Seven ordinary people opened a bottle of medicine and never lived to tell the tale. Their deaths would terrify an entire nation, spark one of the biggest manhunts in history, and yet, over 40 years later, the killer has never been caught. This is the city of big shoulders. For decades, it's been home to some of the biggest mobsters the world has ever seen. But none of them could have predicted what happened next. It started innocently enough. A 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman had a slight headache. Her mom gave her some Tylenol, a brand name for acetaminophen, a common painkiller. But this bottle of medicine was different. It had been laced with potassium cyanide, one of the deadliest poisons known to man. Mary took the pills, and within minutes her stomach began to cramp. She collapsed before she could even reach the phone. By the time her parents realized what had happened, there was nothing they could do. Doctors were unable to save her. They sent her body for an autopsy, and soon the results came back. Mary had died from cyanide poisoning. How could this have happened? Did someone slip the wrong bottle onto the shelf? Maybe, but this was just the beginning. Over the next 2 days, 6 more people were found dead in seemingly unconnected incidents. All of them had taken extra-strength Tylenol. All of them had died from cyanide poisoning. Fear began to grip the city. Headlines blared warnings about poisoned medicine. Grocery stores and pharmacies were immediately emptied of Tylenol. For a moment, it looked like the killer might get away with their horrific spree. But then, police identified one crucial detail. Several of the victims had purchased Tylenol around the same time from local stores. Soon it became clear this was no accident. Someone had tampered with the bottles themselves, slipping capsules filled with poison back into store shelves. The authorities knew they were dealing with a mass murderer. But who could have done such a thing? And why? The investigation quickly became the biggest in FBI history. But for all their work, they ended up with nothing. There was no sign of forced entry at any of the homes. None of the victims had been robbed. There were no witnesses. And when agents combed through the pharmacies where the tainted bottles had been sold, they found no usable fingerprints and no clear connection between victims. What they did find was this: an anonymous letter addressed to the Chicago Tribune newspaper. It demanded $1 million in ransom for information about the killings, threatening further attacks if the money wasn't paid. The FBI set a trap, offering the writer $400,000 in exchange for instructions on where to drop the money. But it was a bust. Whoever wrote the letter wanted the full amount or nothing. Investigators eventually determined that the man behind the letter, James Lewis, had been trying to profit from the murders but had no direct link to the poisonings. Years passed, and the case grew colder. But in 2009, the FBI once again focused on Lewis, charging him with extortion. While he served time for that crime, he was never charged with murder. He maintained his innocence until his death in 2023. What investigators did know was chilling. All of the victims had taken Tylenol manufactured by the McNeil Consumer Products Division of Johnson & Johnson. When the crisis hit, Johnson & Johnson launched a recall of 31 million bottles, almost every Tylenol product in the country. After that recall, cyanide-tainted Tylenol was never seen again. Suspicion turned to an inside job, but despite years of investigation, no one was ever proven guilty. Even more puzzling, there seemed to be no motive. The question is, what would drive someone to do this? Could it be personal gain? Was there a connection between the victims? Was this a random killing spree? But the weirdest part of all was yet to come. Among the many theories surrounding the case is one that will send chills down your spine. Some suspect an insider, perhaps a disgruntled employee looking to frame the company. However, there was no concrete link to the actual killings. Also, how could one person poison so many bottles without being caught? And why single out Tylenol? Still, others believe this was the work of a madman. A lone wolf determined to spread terror through the use of everyday items. Imagine trusting a simple painkiller only to swallow poison. But here's where things take a turn into the truly bizarre. What if this wasn't the work of a single person at all? What if it was the result of something much more sinister? Perhaps a conspiracy that reached far deeper than imagined. The thought is horrifying, and yet some believe it may be the only explanation that makes sense. A powerful group acting behind the scenes to silence those who knew too much. But who would benefit from such a plot, and why? We know that Mary Kellerman was the first victim. She took the pills on September 29th and died shortly after. Later that very same day, 27-year-old postal worker Adam Janus collapsed at home after taking Tylenol. His death was initially ruled a heart attack, but tragedy struck again just hours later. Adam's brother Stanley and his wife Teresa, grieving Adam's sudden death, took Tylenol from the very same bottle. Stanley died that day. Teresa was rushed to the hospital, placed on life support, and passed away on October 2nd. By then, the killer had already struck outside Arlington Heights. 31-year-old flight attendant Mary McFarland took Tylenol at work in Elmhurst and died soon after. On October 1st, 27-year-old new mother Mary Reiner collapsed and died in Winfield, Illinois, also from cyanide poisoning. The seventh and final victim was Paula Prince, a 35-year-old United Airlines flight attendant found dead in her Chicago apartment on October 2nd. Her Tylenol bottle was still sitting on the counter, the receipt dated just days earlier. What kind of monster targets complete strangers this way? Imagine living in 1982, waking up each morning not knowing if the painkiller in your cabinet could kill you. It was a fear that gripped millions of Americans and changed the way medicine was packaged forever. And yet, we still don't know who did it. Was it a lone madman seeking chaos? A disgruntled insider trying to destroy a company's reputation? Or something far more sinister? A shadowy conspiracy that has never been uncovered. Over 40 years later, the Tylenol murders remain one of the most haunting unsolved crimes in American history. Until we know the truth, every pill bottle holds a hidden fear. This is Unsolved Plus. Subscribe for more intriguing mysteries.